All right, where are we? Oh, gewaldig. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're starting Daf Ches, Daf 8 of Masechta Gittin. Friends. Can you tell them in a good mood? They cleaned up over here. Oh my gosh, this week was very difficult for recording Babylon Talmud. It's still light out. I have shtickle koyach. I could record. It's clean. They managed to get the place back in order. Woo! Feels good to be back, friends. Feels good to be back. So we're going to learn Daf Ches of Masechta Gittin. Some interesting-ish stuff. We're going to stop halfway through Ches Amud Beis. I don't know if it's a good idea on my part to stop there. Basically, it gets into a whole sugya there, starting there tomorrow. I'm just not sure if that's such a good idea because there's some not so easy stuff. Tomorrow I think it's going to be a big one. Tomorrow's going to be a big one, Be'etzim. So I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. And then third Friday, we'll have to figure out exactly how to record everything and stay up to date. But today's daf isn't particularly difficult, I don't think. So we're going to start on Daf Zayin Amud Beis. About 10 lines from the bottom. Okay. Yeah? Or not? Yes? I think so. Yes. Tana Chada. Ho. About 10 lines from the bottom. Yo? Tana Chada. Maybe get Basfina Kamevi Beretz Yisrael. Ho. Somebody who writes, right? Rashi says, right? Maybe get Basfina. Shenichtav Basfina. It was written on a boat. And it says Rashi because Sakadaitich the Benaharos Eretz Yisrael Ka'amar. And we're assuming right now that we're talking about rivers in Eretz Yisrael. Are there rivers in Eretz Yisrael? I don't know, but we're talking about a river in Eretz Yisrael, and you wrote the get on a boat on a river in Eretz Yisrael. So now the thing is, obviously we know, of course, we've been learning Masechta Gittin for a week already. We know still a fragrance of paint, but without the dust, it's gewaldig. So of course a get that's written in Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to say b'fanei nechtam. But what if it was in a boat on a river in Eretz Yisrael? It's not on the ground of Eretz Yisrael, but it is within Eretz Yisrael. So Tana Chada, maybe get basvino maybe Eretz Yisrael. So one brisa says that if a fellow writes a get on a boat and he's delivering it to Eretz Yisrael, so it's like it was written in Eretz Yisrael and he does not need to say b'fanei nechtam. V'tani idach, a different brisa says kemevi b'chutz la'aretz, that it's like it's coming from chutz la'aretz and you have to say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says Rabbi Yirmiyah lo kasha, it's no problem. Hari b'Yehuda Rabbanon, ho. That it's machlo. One brisa is Rabbi Yehuda, the other brisa is the Rabbanon. The Tanan is we learn in the Mishnah offer chutz la'aretz, that if you have dirt from chutz la'aretz, Habab Svina la'aretz, and it's in a boat, and it's on its way to Eretz Yisrael. I guess the point is that it's in the waters of Eretz Yisrael. What does Rashi say? I don't know, but I guess it's I guess in the waters of Eretz Yisrael. So chayiv b'maiser uvashvius. So you have this dirt, and you plant the seed in the dirt, and it's on a boat on the water in Eretz Yisrael. So after chutzah above sfina la'aretz chayiv b'maiser v'ashvius. So the Chacham say that it's chayiv in maiser and shvius. It's chayiv. So basically, we treat the water of Eretz Yisrael like Eretz Yisrael. It's chayiv maiser and shvius. Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda a mosai. When is it chayiv and maiser and shvius? Bizman she'asfina gosheshes, only if the boat is touching the ground. Avol in asfina gosheshes potter. But if it's on the water, if it's floating on the water, then it's not going to be considered like it's in Eretz Yisrael. It's going to be potter from meiser and shvius. So we see that the rabbis consider the water to be like Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they would say you would not need to say b'fanei nechtam by a get. And Rabbi Yehuda says that the water is not like Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it would be like chutz la'aretz, and you would have to say b'fanei nechtam. Abaye Omer says Abaye havahar Rabbi Yehuda. Actually, it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Both brises, the one that says that the waters are like Eretz Yisrael for a get, and the one that says that it's not like Eretz Yisrael for a get, they're both Rabbi Yehuda. Velo kasha kamas mancha eina svina gosheshes kamas mancha svina gosheshes. It depends if the boat is touching the earth, is touching the ground, is touching the mud. If it's touching the ground, so then it's considered like Eretz Yisrael, and you do not need to say b'faneichta b'faneichta. But if it's floating, so then it's going to be considered like chutz la'aretz, and you would have to say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam. Amr B'zer says B'zer otzitz nakuv ho 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 ho. If you have a planter, ho ho. Friends, do you like when I do the daparapara? Is that helpful, or is it distracting? Is it annoying? All right, let me know. Maybe I can come up with some other shtick. So if you have epis a planter, and at the bottom of the planter there are holes. So now in general, an otzitz nokuv, a planter with holes in the bottom, is considered if it's on the ground, and so you take the planter and you put it on the ground, and there are holes in it, so it's considered like whatever's growing in the planter is connected to the ground, as opposed to otzitz she'eino nokuv, a planter that doesn't have any holes. So then there's other shilas. It's a different story. But usually if it doesn't have holes, it's considered like it's connected to the ground. But here, what's interesting about it is that it's suspended from the ground. It's not actually touching the ground. Like, for example, hanging off of my mirpeset are some planters, and I think that they have holes in them in the bottom. And so it happens to be stone on the ground. Maybe it's an under ezach, ich weiß nicht. But that's right, there you have it. You have planters that are suspended from the ground. So my neighbor takes care of them. You know, the neighbor that I always say makes a lot of noise. So I have to be careful because Lamaisa, she waters the plants. So I don't have to. So I'm thankful for that. They also bring me my mail. But I basically just leave it out there. Don't tell my dad. I think my dad doesn't like that I basically just let things be. There's a lot of flies in here. The people who cleaned today must have left the door open. A lot of flies. I'm not such a fan of flies, which is why I always keep the door closed, and for other reasons. But what I really don't like is mosquitoes. Flies, whatever. Mosquitoes are a big problem. Let's go weiter. Anybody like mosquitoes? Okay, so Amr B'Zera Otzitz Nokuv, so if you have a planter that has holes in it, which would normally be considered like it's connected to the ground, but Hamuna Chagabi Yisedis, but it's resting on pegs, so it's suspended, it's on stilts, it's suspended from the ground. So we get to the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis. That the rabbis said that a boat that is not touching the ground, that's floating on water, is considered like Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda says that a boat on water is not considered like Eretz Yisrael. So let's apply the same thing here. The planter that is suspended in the air, the rabbis would say is considered like Eretz Yisrael, and we chayiv in Meiser and Shrius. And Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's not considered like Eretz Yisrael. So again, so Amar B'Zera Otzitz Nokov Amuna Chagabi Yiseidis Bonu Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda V'Rabbanon Amar Ravit, says Ravit Dilma Lohi. Maybe that's not true. Maybe don't just apply the machlokes by the boat to the machlokes by the planter, because Adkan Lukam Rabbi Yehuda Hasom, when Rabbi Yehuda says that by the boat, that the boat is not considered like part of Eretz Yisrael, Ela Basvino Asuri Levroach, that's by a boat, because boats are meant to move. Boats are on the move, and therefore they're not considered like they're, the ground, the land of Eretz Yisrael. Boats are on the move. But a planter isn't going anywhere. Take a planter, you plop it down, you leave it for years and years until it breaks. And then so it's not going anywhere. So maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say that even though there's air between, right, space, the stilts, right, the space between the planter and the ground, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say it is considered like part of Eretz Yisrael because it's stationary. Alternatively, maybe the rabbis say that the boat is considered like Eretz Yisrael, because by the boat there's no air separating between the boat and the ground. Because water is basically just considered like, I don't know, kind of, it's matter. It's not air. Right, it's just considered like very thin ground in a sense, right? So you have the ground of the river or whatever, then you have the water, and then you have the boat, but there's no air, there's no space. So maybe when the rabbis say that the boat is considered like it's in Eretz Yisrael, that's because it's in the water, which is touching the ground. There's no air separating. But a planter where there's actual space between the ground and where the planter starts, so maybe they would say it's not considered like part of Eretz Yisrael. So we couldn't just apply the machlokes by the boat to the machlokes by the planter. Okay, fine, friends. We're just getting onto the Daf Ches Amud Aleph now, 10 minutes in, but okay. I still think that the staff is going to move. Okay, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Omer. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, that when it comes to the rivers of Eretz Yisrael, it feels so much better to have a clean house and to be able to record Babylon Talmud earlier when I'm not exhausted. It's very refreshing. I hope all the chevra at Babylon Talmud also feels refreshed. So if Nachman Bar Yitzchak Omer ben Horus there, that when it comes to the rivers of Eretz Yisrael, everyone agrees that the rivers of Eretz Yisrael are within Eretz Yisrael. It's considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Now here's the interesting machlokas. Elakiplige, where they argue Bayam Hagadol, where they argue is by the Mediterranean Sea. Super interesting. The Tanya is willing to say Ezu Eretz ve'ezu Chutz La'aretz. Ho. What is considered Eretz Yisrael and what is considered Chutz La'aretz? Kol sheshofea v'yored miturei Amnon v'lifnim Eretz Yisrael miturei Amnon v'lachutz Chutz La'aretz v'anisin shebayom roin oson kilu chut matuach aleim miturei Amnon anach mitzrayim and achut v'lifnim Eretz Yisrael and achut v'lachutz Chutz La'aretz. Super duper interesting. Okay, again, Ezu Eretz ve'ezu Chutz La'aretz. So what's considered part of Eretz Yisrael and what's considered Chutz La'aretz? So Kol sheshofea v'yored miturei Amnon. So Turei Amnon is Hor Hahar. That would be the northwestern point of Eretz Yisrael. So now the mountain of Amnon. So the mountain, of course, you climb up to the peak and then down. You know, I don't know how to describe a mountain. You can imagine you had a mountain, right? It's almost like you have to climb the mountain to get to the top, and what do you want me to tell you? So from the top and downwards, southwards from Hor Hahar, from the top, from the summit and downwards southwards would be considered part of Eretz Yisrael, whereas downwards northwards would be outside of Eretz Yisrael. So again, anything that's coming right down from the summit of Hor Hahar, which is Turei Amnon, which is the Aramaic translation of Hor Hahar, v'lifnim, and southward, Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. Miturei Amnon v'lachutz, from Hor Hahar and northwards, Chutz La'aretz would be Chutz La'aretz. V'anosin shebayam, and when it comes to the islands of the sea, roin osan ki'ilu chut matuach aleim miturei Amnon anach mitzrayim. So now the southern border, or the southern tip, is the Nachal, the stream of Egypt. So basically, so the northwestern point is Turei Amnon, the southwestern point is Nachal Mitzrayim, and if anybody's seen Eretz Yisrael, like the western border is not straight. It's kind of like a on like an arc or something. So if you take a straight line and you draw a straight line from Turei Amnon until Nachal Mitzrayim, so basically there will be part of the Mediterranean within that straight line, to the east, to the right of that straight line, and then to the west there will be a lot more of the Mediterranean. So now what we're saying is that the islands that are off the coast of Eretz Yisrael, there are islands off the coast of Eretz Yisrael. Okay. So Vanisin Shabayam, so these islands off the coast, so we view it as if there's a straight line, as if there's a thread that is extended from Turei Amnon to Nachal Mitzrayim, Minachud v'lifnim Eretz Yisrael. So from the line eastward to the right would be considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Minachud v'lachutz Chutz La'aretz, and from the line to the left, westward, would be considered Chutz La'aretz. So within the Mediterranean Sea, right, anything to the right of this imaginary line is considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Anything to the left of it is considered to be Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda kol shekeneged Eretz Yisrael areu ke'Eretz Yisrael. That's super interesting. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is different. I don't even know how the heck to explain this, but he says basically any part of the Mediterranean, like if you basically draw, as we're going to see in a second, if you basically draw a line, not north-south from Turi Amnon to Nachum Mitzrayim, but if you draw two parallel lines, one from Turi Amnon in the north, and you draw it leftward as far as you can, and one from Nachum Mitzrayim, and you draw that to the left, to westward as far as you can. So anything in between those two lines, as far as you can go, is still going to be considered Eretz Yisrael. Right, so Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol shekeneged Eretz Yisrael, anything that's opposite to the west of Eretz Yisrael, as far as you can go, Harei Eretz Yisrael is considered like Eretz Yisrael Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ugvul Yam, and the western border, Vayalochem Hayam Agadol, you have the Mediterranean, Ugvul Zayeh Lochem Gvul Yam, and this border will be the western border, Vanisin Shabbat Stadin, and these islands to the on the side of Eretz Yisrael, Ron Osan Kiluchut Matuach Ale Mikapluria Vadyam Okeanos. We see as if there's a straight line drawn from Turi Amnon. That's like Kapluria is like the peak of Turi Amnon, and you draw it all the way to the left until the Atlantic. Minacham Mitzrayim Vadyam Okeanos, and from Nachum Mitzrayim in the south, again you draw a straight line westward as far as you can. Minachut V'lifnim Eretz Yisrael, Minachut V'lachut Chutz La'aretz. Anything within these two parallel lines is considered Eretz Yisrael for as far as you can go on the Mediterranean. And anything outside of these two parallel lines is considered like Chutz La'aretz. Okay, fine. So we see that the machloka is between Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis about a get written on a boat. It's not about rivers in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone would agree that would be considered part of Eretz Yisrael. The shaila is if you're on the Mediterranean. So there's machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim about which parts of the Mediterranean are considered part of Eretz Yisrael and which part are considered Chutz La'aretz. Now, V'Rabbanan Hay Ugvul Mai Avdei Le. What do the rabbis do with this pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda quotes of Ugvul Yam? So Mibayle Lit Nisan. So they needed to teach about these islands, right? That meaning that the border of Eretz Yisrael is not just the coast of the Mediterranean coast, but even those areas within that straight line. For Rabbi Yehuda Nisan lo tzrich ekra is Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't need any specific psukim for these islands, because he'll just say anything to the west of Eretz Yisrael is considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Reb Meir Omer Akol Eretz Yisrael v'chulei. So Reb Meir had said that acre is considered part of Eretz Yisrael for Gittin. Bo'mine Reb Chia bar Abba, they asked Reb Chia bar Abba, Hamocher Abdu l'Surya Kimocher b'chutz la'aretz dami lo. If a fellow sells his eved to I believe Syria, right? Rashi says Surya is he Aram Tzova v'kovsha David v'osif al Eretz Yisrael. L'maisa, when I was reviewing this daf, I was in a groove with two of my friends. They're Syrian Yidden from Syria. They're Yidden from Syria. They're both from Aleppo. I knew one of them. They're from Deal, New Jersey. And I knew one of them from Eretz Yisrael. He's back in Deal, New Jersey now. And then he brought onto groove his friend, who's now in Denver. And anyways, we had a shtickle for bringing. And, we were working, of course. And so anyways, as I was learning about Syria, I could tell them, tell me Epis, about Aram Tzova. They were telling me about, and then afterwards we were chatting. They were telling me about Damascus and very interesting stuff. Anyways, so I believe that's Syria. So okay, so a fellow who sells an evidence to Syria. So Rashi says something very interesting. Right? Apparently we're going to learn about this on Daf Ayin Vav. But right, if you sell your eved to somebody in Chutz La'aretz, so the eved goes free because an eved is chayiv mitzvahs, and you're not, as a knas to the person who purchased the eved goes free because you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, and avodim are chayavim in that. In that mitzvah, and as a knas for making the eved leave Eretz Yisrael and violating that mitzvah, so then the eved goes free. Very interesting. We'll have to learn more about that. What does it mean? Osur lotzes, Eretz l'chutza. It's very interesting. So again, ba mine Reb Chia bar Abba. They asked Reb Chia bar Abba, Mocher Avdu l'Surya. So if a fellow sells an eved to Surya, kemocher b'chutz la'aretz dami. So is it like selling him to Chutz La'aretz and therefore he goes free? Or is it not considered like Chutz La'aretz? Is it considered like Eretz Yisrael? So he says to them, look, we learned in our Mishnah of Meir, Omer says, Meir, Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Akko is considered like Eretz Yisrael for Gittin. Gittin in. For Gittin, it's considered like Eretz Yisrael. But La'avodim lo, Akko would be considered like Chutzlaretz with regard to Avodim. V'chol shekain, Surya Dimrach Ketuva. And certainly Syria, which is even further than Acre. It's very interesting stuff. In 3 ways, Syria is similar to Eretz Yisrael, and in 3 ways to Chutzlaretz. So Ataka asked my friends, let's go weiter. So offer to make a Chutzlaretz, so the dirt of Syria, I think, I'm going to call it Syria, I hope that's correct. Correct? I don't know, if anybody has more info on it could be interesting. I'm just going to call Syria. I don't know, what do you want me to tell you? Why not? Well, because maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know if I'm wrong. And Syria sounds like Syria. So v'shlosh lechutzlaretz, in 3 ways considered fine. So offer tamei, its dirt is tamei kechutzlaretz, like chutzlaretz. V'amocher avdo l'Syria, a fellow who sells an evet to Syria, kemocher b'chutzlaretz. It's like selling an evet to chutzlaretz, and the evet goes free. V'maybe get me Syria, maybe mechutzlaretz. And a fellow who brings a get from Syria, it's like he's bringing it from chutzlaretz. You have to say before nichtum. V'shlosh le'eretz Yisrael, and in 3 ways Syria is considered like Eretz Yisrael. Chayeves b'maisu v'shviyah. So I asked my friends, so did they in Syria would they separate Trumas and Maisus? He said no. I don't know if because that's the halacha or just he gave a different answer, which I'm not going to repeat. But be'etzim the sentiment was no. Okay. That the fellow who wants to go into Syria, B'Taire, we're going to explain what that means, can. And a fellow who purchases a field in Syria, it's like he acquires a field in the province of Jerusalem. We're going to see what that means. So we said that Syria is chayiv and ma'aser and shvius like Eretz Yisrael. Kasover kibush yochid shmei kibush. That when David HaMelech captured Aram Tzova, captured Syria, so he made it part of Eretz Yisrael. It's considered like Eretz Yisrael now, and therefore it is chayiv in ma'aser and shvius like Eretz Yisrael. Somebody wants to go into Syria in purity. Nichnas he can. I don't understand. Didn't you just say a minute ago that the dirt of Syria is tamei? How can you go in and be pure if the dirt is tamei? B'shida teva umigdal. I looked this up, right? I forgot to write it down. It's b'shida teva umigdal. Come on. In a carriage, a trunk, or a closet. Some kind of moving container. So if you go in a carriage, a trunk, or a closet into Syria, you will remain tahor. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brisa, nichnas le'eretz ha'amim, that somebody who goes into the lands of the nations, b'shida teva umigdal, in a carriage, trunk, or closet. Is that what we said? Rabbi Matame, Rabbi says it doesn't help. And for Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Matayr, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that he's tahor. That the shaila is an ohel zaruk. If you have a moving enclosure, is that considered an ohel that would separate from Tumah or not? So Rabbi says no, it doesn't make a separation from Tumah. But Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that it does, and it's tahor. But even Rabbi who says that going in a carriage, a closet, or whatever it was, that it's tamei, but that's only be'eretz ha'amim. Tegazu al gusha ve'al avira, because in Eretz ha'amim, not just the dirt is tamei, but also the air. Aval Syria al gusha gazu, al avira lo gazu. Only the dirt of Syria is tamei, but the air is not, and therefore, as long as you avoid the dirt, if you go in what do we call it? A carriage, a trunk, or a closet, so then you'll be tahor. That a fellow who purchases a field in Syria, it's like he purchased it in the province of Jerusalem, the Mayil. So what does that mean? It means that you write a document on that purchase in Syria, even on Shabbos. Well, you can write a document on Shabbos. It's like Rava says, Omer la'ovid kochavim v'osa, Ochinami omer la'ovid kochavim v'osa. No, you can instruct an ovid kochavim, amir la'akum. You can instruct an ovid kochavim to write the document on the sale. Ba'afagav da'amir la'ovid kochavim shvus, mishum yishuv eretz Yisrael l'gozer abonon. Ho. That even though amir la'akum, as we learned about in Masechta Shabbos is also midrabanan, but nonetheless, out of the interest of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, of inhabiting, of living in Eretz Yisrael, you can instruct an Oved Kochavim to write a document for you about a purchase of land in Eretz Yisrael on Shabbos in the interest of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Very interesting. Friends, we're going to stop here because then we get into a mamish, a real sugya over here, palginon dibura. It's a real sugya. I don't want to start a real sugya right now. So I also don't know how I'm going to record the next daf, because basically the next daf it's a real daf. You got to work through it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll even record it in 2 sittings. That was daf ches of Masechta Gittin. Very, very interesting daf. We talked a lot about the borders of Eretz Yisrael. And the machlo is very interesting about the Mediterranean Sea. Which parts of the Mediterranean Sea are part of Eretz Yisrael? We talked about Syria. Now Syria is in some ways similar to Eretz Yisrael, in other ways different. Very, very interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Have a good day. Peace out.